Good evening, everybody. Once again, this is your favorite teacher, Professor Yomi Akiye, from the Department of History and Strategic Studies, Faculty of High University of Lagos. Today, I want to be examining the role of France and Nigeria in the geopolitics of West Africa. Geopolitics has to do with the relations between geography and politics, and between geography and relations among states. It has to do with resources, the physical location, and how this have affected the relations among states down the ages. In West Africa, Nigeria and France have been the two main powers that have been geopolitical rivals. This is because sizable number of West African countries are francophone, and for a very long time they belonged to the French Commonwealth, which regarded them as an exclusive preserve, as a reserved area of influence of France. And France had done everything to make sure that it dictated the pace of their relations with all countries in general, and Nigeria in particular. This was why, for example, when Nigeria was taking some leadership initiative roles in West Africa, France succeeded in dissuading these francophone West African countries from following the leadership of Nigeria. When Nigeria was initiating the establishment of ECOWAS, France went all out to discourage the francophone West African countries from joining or from following Nigeria, because according to it, Nigeria would dominate them. But we have noted of recent that the relations between these francophone West African countries and France have not been the best, and they've been rising against France. Most of them have terminated the defense agreement they had with France and have asked France to withdraw. Burkina Faso has done this, Niger, Mali, among others, and Senegal has also served a notice to France that it should consider winding up its military bases in Senegal. Côte d'Ivoire has done the same thing. Why this downturn in the relations between France and our former colonies is going on? An observable trend is that there seems to be a new wave of cordiality between Nigeria and France. This is exemplified in the way the Nigerian president goes to France and enjoys very good consideration with the French government. The purpose of this discussion is to show that either by way of France alienating francophone West African countries from Nigeria, or romancing with Nigeria at a time when the relations between her and our former colonies are not in the best of shape, that the foreign policy and the goal of France in the geopolitics of West Africa remains the same, and that is to make sure that Nigeria and these French-speaking West African countries are not on cordial terms. The purpose of this discussion is to say that Nigeria should be on its guard and know that while there are no permanent enemies and no permanent friends in international relations, there is permanent interest. Nigeria's interest is to exercise leadership in West Africa, and if Nigeria inadvertently portrays itself to be very cordial with France, that its former colonies are seen as not too cordial now, Nigeria may not like the outcome. And that is why we have taken two literary quotations, one from Shakespeare's Coriolanus and the other from Lucio Fola's The False Hope. Shakespeare's Coriolanus said the fittest time to corrupt a man's wife is when she has fallen out with the husband. Whereas Lucio Fola in her own case said, it is to a friendly concubine that a woman in need hopes. Now that francophone West African countries are falling apart, francophone West African countries that can be regarded as the wives of France in this regard, now that they are falling apart, this is the fittest time for Nigeria to improve its relations with them and make sure they are on very good and cordial terms. And if Nigeria does not do this, there are so many other concubines, so many other suitors parading West Africa who may establish themselves. Among these are China, the United States, and Russia. And should this happen, Nigeria's geostrategic interests might be threatened. Nigeria, like the United States, is a country that is geostrategically advantaged. It is bounded by the north, essentially by the Sahara, and only Niger stands between Nigeria and the Sahara Desert. The Sahara Desert alone occupies a territorial expanse of 9,200,000 square kilometers. That means for anybody to attack Nigeria from the north, it has to reckon with that extent of territory. But Nigeria shares boundaries with Niger. If, as a result of commission or omission, Nigeria allows Niger to be allied or to fall under the influence of an unfriendly country, that means Nigeria is vulnerable to very strong countries from that area. Similarly to the south, Nigeria is bordered by the Atlantic. The Atlantic occupies 20% or 1/5 of the total surface of the earth. That means to attack Nigeria from the south, you have to reckon with that expanse of territory and at a depth of a minimum of 13,000 feet. So Nigeria is fortified, is defended to the north and by the south by these two natural barriers. And of course, to the west, you have Benin Republic, which to all intents and purposes are like a brother state to Nigeria. And to the northeast, you have Chad. To the southeast, you have Cameroon. That Nigeria should not forfeit these natural geostrategic advantages by allowing powerful countries to move into the void being created by the absence of France. And so Nigeria should move in and take its position, should ameliorate and deepen its relationship with these Francophone West African countries. For any country to constitute a credible threat to another, in strategic studies, there are three factors to reckon with. That is capability, conflict of interest, and contiguity. From the geostrategic location of Nigeria, not many countries, not many powerful countries are contiguous with Nigeria, unless Nigeria inadvertently allows its weak neighbors to ally with these powerful countries and therefore give them the element of contiguity which it now enjoys. This paper is arguing that Nigeria should not make this tactical error of not deepening relations with our immediate neighbors and forfeiting geostrategic advantages which it enjoys by natural situation. It's just like the United States, which by nature is also very well geostrategically favored. To the west and the east, the United States is bordered by the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans. And so nobody can easily attack the US from these two directions. To the north is bordered by Canada, which to all intents and purposes is like the Republic East of Nigeria, is a very friendly country. And to the south by the numerous Latin American states that cannot do the US anything. But the US fights tooth and nail to make sure that no powerful country establishes itself in any of these states that borders the territory of the US. This was, for example, the whole essence of the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, where the US fought tooth and nail to get the defunct Soviet Union to evacuate Cuba. The same advantage which the US has there is what the advantage that Nigeria has now. And now that France, which had exercised preponderant influence in this area, is falling out with these colonies, Nigeria should move in and not allow new suitors such as China, such as the United States and Russia to fill the void which France is leaving. And should that happen, Nigeria's geostrategic interests will be imperiled. All over the world and down the ages, countries have always been very concerned about their vicinity. For example, Britain, for most of the time, took the situation of Belgium very seriously and would not countenance a situation in which Belgium was under the control of any strong and powerful state. It was the consideration for Belgian neutrality, for example, which was the immediate occasion for Britain entering the First World War. So Nigeria should take a cue from the lessons of history and not forfeit the geostrategic advantage it enjoys by being surrounded by Francophone countries, which hitherto had not been as cordial as they should have been with Nigeria. Now that France is leaving them, Nigeria should seize this advantage and make its presence more felt in these Francophone countries to our own geostrategic advantage. Thank you.